Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Troy Dante Presswood. I'm the president of the Ward 8 Democrats, and I want to thank all of our Ward 8 family and friends and everyone who are tuning in here today on this Zoom as well as online for today's special candidate forum. Please click like and click share on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Ward 8 Dems across all social channels. And I want you to tag us using the hashtag Ward 8 Dems or Ward 8 Votes so others don't miss it. Now, this is your choice, your voice. In keeping with our voter education mission, we are pleased to present today's virtual forum for candidates seeking the position of at-large council member, shadow U.S. Senator, and shadow U.S. Representative. This is the first of two forums we have scheduled in advance of a June 4th Democratic primary. The other candidate forum will take place next month on Saturday, May 18th for Ward 8 council member and delegate to Congress. And it's going to be at the Sycamore and Oak Main Pavilion over at the St. Elizabeth East Campus. We will also conduct a straw poll at that event for all candidates appearing on the Ward 8 ballot. So we encourage everyone who is here today to come out to that in-person event on May 18th. I want you to make sure that your voices are heard, and we'll drop the link to RSVP in just a moment. I want to thank today's sponsor. It is the DC Democratic Party. And so, as you know, they've been very busy getting ready for the Democratic primary. They are supporting forums like ours throughout the district, and they are also a sponsor of today's forum. So we do want to thank them for their sponsorship. Before we get into the forum, I want to just have a very quick discussion about what it takes to vote this year. And now at the conclusion of this at-large forum, I will show you some slides, which you can screenshot, some slides that will show you exactly where you can vote and how you will vote. But the first thing you need to know is that the Board of Elections will begin sending out these ballots, your mail-in ballots. They will be sent out and coming into your mailbox next week. So they are scheduled to send these ballots out on April 29th. You can send those ballots in by the mail, or you can drop them off at a vote center, or you can put them into a drop box. And again, I'll have all of that information about where you can do that in Ward 8 at the conclusion of the at-large candidate forum right before we go into the U.S. Rep and the U.S. Senate forum. So stay tuned for that. Keep in mind, though, you can vote and use any drop box. You can go to any vote center, use any drop box in the District of Columbia. It doesn't have to just be in Ward 8, but I want to showcase those locations because they just may be right around the corner from where you live. All right, well, with that being said, let's get started with our forum. I want to introduce to you today's moderator. Calique Barnes I'm taking his age down, my bad. Calique Barnes is a 16-year-old junior at Thurgood Marshall Academy and is a resident here in Ward 8. As a licensed minister, Calique has been spreading the word of God since he was 5 years old. Additionally, he is a passionate youth advocate working tirelessly to empower young people here in Ward 8 and throughout the district. Calique works with council members and he works with our mayor to advocate for change. That is, a true servant leader in our community. But that's not all. Calique is also a trained entrepreneur, a talented entrepreneur rather, running his own business called Barnes Digital Design, specializing in graphic designing, business management, and ministry. Calique's dedication to his academics is commendable as he strives to pursue his dreams of attending college. And we are proud to have him here today at the Ward 8 Democrats. Calique, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, how are you? I appreciate you, Troy, for allowing me to come on. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Calique Barnes. As you said, I go to Thurgood Marshall Academy, a junior. And I'm definitely excited to be here to moderate this amazing event on today. So thank you to everyone who are watching us online. We hope that you gain some insight, gain knowledge, and gain understanding of what's going to happen on today. So this forum we have is very amazing, and it's a good one today. We're going to have our Ward 8 Democrats Forum, engaging in three amazing conversations with candidates who are trying to become or attempting to become the next at-large council member in the DC Council. And so with this forum, we're going to get more information of who they are, what their plans are, what they strive to do, specifically here in Ward 8 and throughout the district, different policies they may, have, their vision, and just simply how can they make an impact on Ward 8 residents and on people like me. So the conversation that we're going to have today is going to last around a good 45 minutes, and it will be a debate style kind of forum, and you'll also be timed. So initially, I'll be asking you a few questions, but this forum is specifically for those who are here and those who may be watching live. You may have the opportunity to ask questions, get more information, just using the raise your hand feature. And I'll make sure that your voice is heard. And for those who may be online, I'll make sure that we have a list of your questions and they'll be picked. We'll try to get to most of them, but if not, you'll be able to ask them eventually. So yeah, you can post your questions in the chat, like I said, using hashtag Ward8Votes. And we'll try to get to many as possible. So with that being said, before we begin, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, we can begin. So as far as the first round do you have something to say? Okay. As far as the first round, we're going to have each candidate will be given 1 minute, 60 seconds for an opening statement. We'll start with 1 minute responses to questions and then move on to 30 seconds responses as we get closer to the ending gap of our portion. And we may also move to rapid fire questions with short responses for very short answers. And yes.
Hey, Calique, it's LaJoy. I'm your timekeeper. So to all the candidates, I'm going to be timing you. When you get to 30 seconds, you'll see 30. It may be backwards. And then when you get to time, it's going to say stop. Okay? All right. I'm going to go back on mute. If you can't see me, let me know so I can make sure you can see the time. All right. And congratulations and good luck.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So let's make sure that we're trying to at least stay on time a little bit and make sure that we're obedient to make sure that we have things done in decency and in order. So with that being said, if there's any other questions or comments, we can get started with our first forum. We're excited. So under the District of Columbia's legislative branch, there are 4 at-large council, at-large members on the DC Council. There are 2 are elected to 4-year terms every presidential election year, and 2 to 4-year terms every non-presidential election year. We're obviously in the presidential year. 2 candidates are running for this seat. As you can see, we have here Robert White, and we also have Rodney Red Grant. And they are Rodney White is running for re-election to a 3rd term. And then Rodney Red Grant is the challenger. So now we're going to meet them and let's see what we get into. We can have Robert White.
Thank you so much, Calique, for moderating. Thank you to President Presswood and the Ward 8 Dems for hosting this and for the DC Democratic Party. I'm at-large council member Robert White. I'm a 5th-generation Washingtonian, and for the past 7 years, I've had the absolute honor of representing my city on the DC Council. I ran for this position because I felt like we needed more doers, doing things that impacted folks like my family and communities like mine. And so as soon as I got elected, I got to work making major national reforms on returning citizens to help our returning citizens, major national reforms on early childhood education. But then I pushed further, a full reform of the DC Housing Authority so our residents can live with dignity, focusing on crime, both our response and prevention. How do we help our young people more? Getting to the root causes of problems, creating a free master's in social work program for residents so that people from our community can be a part of the solution in our community. There's so much more to do, and I look forward to talking to you about it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grant, we can have you.
Thank you so much for having me today. I want to thank Mr. Presswood. I want to thank the Ward 8 Dems. This is a special forum. My name is Rodney Red Grant. I'm a Southeast DC native and a Washingtonian by heart and by nature. I love this city of Washington, D.C., and people always ask me, why should they vote for me? Because I'm already doing the work. We're already doing the work of being the chairman of vocational education, bringing it back to Washington, D.C. schools. We're going to push that because we know our young people need vocational education. We know our programs like Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Cameras have been in Ward 8 for 3 years, showing young people filmmaking from thought to theater, and we're showing them how to be effective leaders in Ward 8. And also me and my wife at Beyond Your Block, where we take our young people off their block and take them to the White House, African American Museum, Commanders games, and we're going to continue to take our young people off their block and show them different things. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about today's forum.
Okay, thank both of you. We appreciate you. So we're gonna jump into the questions that we do have. And any of as far as right now, I believe any one of you can answer the question. But we're gonna start with Mr. White. So the first question that I do have is, how would you work to improve education and school quality in underserved areas such as Ward 8?
Education is the most important thing that we do as a city. It is the thing that has allowed me to do the things I've done in life, which is distinct from most of my family members who have been priced out of this city and continue to struggle with basic issues. So first, we need to support our teachers. I've been a leader in the council in keeping our teachers in schools. We need to get rid of the outdated impact teacher assessments that's causing teachers to leave our schools that are struggling the most. We need to incentivize those teachers to stay in those schools. And we also need to address the mental health issues that our students are facing when they're seeing the types of issues they're seeing in their communities every day, that when we're expecting them to perform at top notch in their classrooms without giving them the supports that they need. That's why I fought to get mental health workers and social workers in our schools, created a free pipeline for people to be able to do that work. And I focused on things like financial literacy and vocational education, the things that are going to help our young people in the long run. Those are the kind of solutions we need coming from members of the council, and those are the ones that I've been offering.
Thank you. All right, same question to Mr. Grant. How would you work to improve education and school quality in underserved areas like Ward 8?
Well, like I said, we're already working with schools like Ketchum, elementary schools. We already in schools like Johnson Middle School, where we already implemented the programs like Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Cameras, and Beyond Your Block. So we're already doing the work that a council member should be doing. We believe in a boots on the ground type of approach, where we fought with our teachers and students over at Sousa Middle School, and we're going to continue to fight for East of the River schools, Ward 8, and it's about having a fighter in office. You know, people need to follow people they recognize and they know that's going to fight for them, and I'm that person.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, Mr. White, is what strategies would you propose to improve public safety and reduce crime in Ward 8 and across the district?
Thank you for that question, Calique. I've been a leader in this work. If we're going to reduce crime, we have to do two things. One, we have to respond to crime. That means we need to fix our broken 911 call system because folks are not getting an answer when they're calling in an emergency. And second, we need to fix our broken crime lab. I have been on the front lines of those fights. That's how we turn the corner on crime that we're seeing across our city. But we also have to focus on prevention. So I came out several weeks ago with a prevention bill that focuses on three major things. One, the biggest expansion of vocational education our city has ever seen. Two, mentors available to every single student in our schools, and I have a plan for it. It's in legislation. And three, more aggressive resources for truancy. That's the earliest sign that our young people are going off track. That's when we catch them and get them back on the right road. If we follow the prescription that I've developed, and I'm working with my council colleagues to do that, we're going to see crime go down, and we're going to see more of our young people be more successful.
Mr. Grant, same question.
We're talking about reducing crime in our city. Our city is on edge right now, and people in office are saying that they're reducing crime. But a few days ago, we had 71 shots on Spring Road ring out in our city, and it's ringing out every day in Ward 8. So crime is not being reduced by any of these methods that my colleague is speaking on. We have to be really, really passionate about resetting what we're doing. The council has to have people to understand the individuals in these communities that are going through these situations. You know, young people are hurting out here right now. You know, they have mental issues, yeah, but they also want to learn different things, be involved with different innovative things. We have to put that in our schools. Coding, gaming, all of these things that they love, to bring them to school. Truancy can stop if we give them things that they want to do when they get to school.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-up question, and you can answer this 30 seconds for me. When it comes down to public safety within the perimeter of schools, how can we go about to making that effective for, swift transitions and making it effective for like around the school perimeter?
Are you asking me, right? Okay, cool. All right. So, public safety around schools is the most important because our young people have to get to and from school to get their education, and also on public transportation, because a lot of the situations that are happening on public transportation trying to get to school. So we got to make it safe for our young people to get to school and be in an environment. But also, we have to have more officers just around the school watching out just to make sure our young people are safe. We don't want no violence happening around our young people because that's what they want to do, get their education.
Yes, sir. Mr. White, you have anything to add?
Yes, I've talked to hundreds of young people about the issues they're facing, because you can't solve problems with young people if you're not talking to them. What they're telling me is that they are not participating in after-school programs because if it gets dark before that program ends, they're worried about how they're going to get home safely. That is a problem. So one, pushing our Safe Routes to School program better. It is not working as effectively as it should, which is why I've been putting pressure on the mayor to focus on that. The second is communication between MPD and our schools. Teachers and principals keep telling us they're not hearing from MPD about what's happening and how to keep their kids safe.
Thank you. All right, next question. How would you approach economic development and job creation in Ward 8, which has historically faced high unemployment rates? I can ask Mr. White.
First, we start by doing something that I've done. I'm looking at businesses, thriving businesses in Ward 8 that employ and engage local people and communities being displaced. So I worked with Ron Moten and with other business owners to help them buy their buildings, which is something the government had not done since Barry's years. That is a model that I want to continue to expand so that we are getting local business owners hiring local people. The second thing we have to do is incentivize the types of businesses that are needed in Ward 8, but also that want to go into Ward 8 and Ward 7. You're not going to force folks who don't want to be there. And frankly, if they don't want to be there, we don't want them there. But we need the business owners who want to be part of the community, who are going to give back, who are going to hire local people. That's where economic development starts. But we have to make sure that people in Ward 8 are business owners and top level employees, not people coming into the community, taking the community's money and getting the heck out of the community. That's not what we need.
Thank you. Mr. Grant.
Yeah, business in Ward 8 can be super successful right now, but we have to give people incentives. We're losing more businesses in DC right now than we're gaining. People are leaving the city. We have to give tax breaks, tax incentives, put legislation in place that's going to give people who are from Ward 8 the opportunity to own more, to do more, and be business owners in Ward 8. It's not rocket science. I'm a pragmatic Democrat. I think in a common sense way. You give people breaks, they have an opportunity to get on their feet. And we're not getting people enough breaks out here. We're making it hard for them to get business, have businesses in Ward 8. We're making it hard for them to have businesses in DC because everybody is running down on them and making them pay more taxes and making them feel uncomfortable, can't have any parking in front of their businesses. And that's taking away business. It's getting ridiculous. We're not protecting the business owners themselves.
Okay. Thank you. And that ties into our kind of ties into our next questions. What initiatives would you propose to support small businesses and encourage entrepreneurship in Ward 8? We can start with Mr. Grant.
Well, I'll continue on what I'm saying about businesses and giving them tax breaks. This is important, and not only a lot of people just don't know the information. The information is not right there for them to grab, and we got to make it more accessible for our Ward 8 residents. It's a shame that you can go uptown and they're giving all kinds of businesses to different people. Then you go to Ward 8, it's being selfish, but they're giving buildings away for $1. Well, why our residents can't get buildings from $1? Why we can't educate our residents of how to get generational wealth? Well, we want them to stay in generational poverty? No, we got to give people opportunity to have generational wealth, and that's what I bring to the table.
Thank you. Mr. White.
We need to be focused on actual solutions. So the city has tried tax breaks, and what resulted was a number of businesses that came and they were closed weeks after they were open, and that meant people lost jobs, taxpayers lost money, and people in those communities weren't any better off. That's why I'm saying we need the folks who want to be there, but then we need to make sure for the folks who do want to be there, we're helping them pay their mortgage for the first year. We're incentivizing them to hire people from the community and making sure they know if you are getting taxpayer money, then you have got to hire residents from Ward 8, because this has to be an economic ecosystem that is helping everyone. That's where our focus has to be. Who are the folks who want to be there? Do they provide what the community needs? And are they hiring people from the community? That's the recipe that's going to benefit. But we also need the administration to be better with these regulations and licensing, because it is too hard to start a business anywhere and everywhere in the district, especially if you don't know somebody high up in the administration. That's a symptom of a broken system.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question would be, what strategies would you implement to increase access to healthy food options and address food deserts in Ward 8? We can ask Mr. White.
There are a couple of things we have to do. First, we have to focus on things that we see working, like farmers markets, people who are bringing fresh foods to our communities and making those foods financially accessible. The second thing we have to do is utilize technology. Brick and mortar stores are not the only solutions these days. Such a large percentage of people are having food delivered to them. For the money that we could use to incentivize stores to open, we can also use that money to get food for free to the doorsteps of people, particularly seniors who are already having enough difficulty getting access to fresh foods. I will tell you, anybody who says just offer incentives to grocery stores and they'll come has not talked to these grocery stores. This is a much more complex solution. So as we figure that out, which I believe the solution is smaller grocery stores, we need to make sure we're not just sitting on our hands, but we're looking for things that can work right now.
Mr. Grant.
I try to stay patient in these conversations, but it's really weird to me. A person who's been in office for 7 years is talking about, giving these breaks of a year and paying, but they had the opportunity to do this for 7 years. I believe that if we're going to really, truly be saving our people as far as giving them real nutrition, we have to do it on a daily basis. Weekly, I do it with my partners over at the Rich Kid Foundation. We feed so many people every Wednesday and Tuesday with fresh food from Whole Foods. I'm talking about boots on the ground. Let's get out the Wilson building. Come with me and I'll show you how to feed our community right now.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. Our next question, one of my favorites right here. What is your position on dealing with parental responsibility for crimes committed by their children? I'm going to add something. How do you feel as if by you holding parents accountable, will it change the outcome of what our youth are doing in Ward 8? We can start with Mr. Grant.
Oh, hold on,
Well,
Mr. Grant, before you start, Calique, because you added another question, do you want to give them a minute and 30 instead of just a minute?
We
Okay,
can.
hold on, Mr. Grant, let me give you another 30 seconds.
okay, thank you. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
and go.
All right. So, well, parenting is already difficult. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and it's already hard because when kids are going through teenage years, they're going through their, they think, they swing, they know they, they smart, they really smart. You guys are super smart, so we can't just look at our teenagers as they don't know what's going on. They do. They actually know more than us. So when we're dealing with our young people and our parenting, it's a real fine line, but I'm a parent. I believe that parents should parent, but we also have to get to the root of the problems. Why are our kids, parents doing what they're doing? Are they having trouble? Are we going to get them help? How do we get our parents that can't, handle these situations help? Because our young people are crying out for help. And you can see it in the way that they're acting. If we don't have parents involved in the whole relationship, we're going to lose our community. It takes a village to raise a community. So sometimes it's going to take other people to parent now. We got to bring in community leaders. Our returning citizens going to have to come. Our good men going to have to step up. Now it's time for others to help. So I believe that if we put the right energy into it, we're going to have better kids, better parents, but we do have to hold parents accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Same question.
Well,
Thank you. Every time I look on the news and I see a 14, 15-year-old involved in something like a carjacking at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, my first question is where are the parents and what are the parents doing? There has to be accountability for parents who are not providing the type of guidance and loving discipline that children need. And we need to turn that corner. Now, this is where this issue gets really difficult. I've spoken to a parent who reached out to me because one of her son's friends was shot, and she was saying, I keep telling him to go to school. I'm pushing him to do the right thing. I don't know what else to do. And this was a mother who loved her son and wanted to keep her son safe, but the son wasn't listening to her. What we have not yet figured out is how do we hold a parent who is neglectful accountable without holding accountable a mother who's trying to do everything she can and who has other kids. So if we find that mother, if we send that mother to jail, are her kids going to do better? They're not. So we need to get better resources to parents, and we can do that. So in addition to better resources for parents, we need to make sure we have mentors for our young people who stand in the gap, people who stand in the gap for those young people who don't have the guidance at home. That's why in the crime prevention bill that I push, one of the things that I'm trying to get done is mentors and tutors for young people across our city because they need more guidance than they're getting at home. So as we help to resource the parents and we have models for that, we also need to stand in the gap for kids. These are doable things that I'm already working on.
Okay. Thank you. So our next one is did any of you had anything to add?
I mean, I would say, Robert, you can come out here and mentor with me because I'm mentoring on a daily basis. So we can mentor together because it's going to take leaders to get out of that office and mentor.
Yes.
That's nice, sir. I mentor a number of young people, but the thing that we have to recognize is
Well, I know,
that you have to be creative. Don't interrupt me, brother. Don't interrupt me. I'll let you speak. Okay. So,
people.
all right, moderator, are we going to do the back and forth, or am I going to?
Hold on. Let's do this. Hold on.
Well, I'm not going to do
Mr.
that.
Grant, we're going to give Mr. Grant, hold on. This is LaJoy. I'm your timekeeper. I'm speaking. Thank you so much. What we're going to do, Calique, I think you should give them each 30 seconds to respond. You call on each candidate. As your timer, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then I'm going to put up the stop sign, and we're going to do it that way. We're going to be respectful here in Ward 8. Does everyone understand?
Yes, LaJoy.
Thank you so much. Calique, please call the candidates and give them 30 seconds to respond.
Okay, we're going to have Mr. Grant, 30 seconds.
I'm going to be respectful to the timekeeper, Ms. LaJoy, but I'm out in these streets on a daily basis with these young people, and we're taking real guns out of their hands and replacing them with cameras. And our community needs our leaders to get out into the community, not sit in the office anymore. You know, that's old school. That's cool, but we need a boots on the ground type of approach to this situation, and that's what I am. I'm a boots on the ground type of leader, and I'm gonna continue to be that type of leader. And I'm asking every leader in the city to be that type of leader.
Mr. White.
All right. Thank you. I mentor a number of young people. I don't make a show of it, so you won't see it on my IG. But I also recognize that for each of us, there's only so much we can do individually. That's why we have to make sure we are working both inside and outside of the Wilson building. So outside of the Wilson building, I mentor young people. Inside the Wilson building, I create systems to help people across the city mentor more young people. There are 35,000 DC government employees. If and when my bill passes that I introduced a few weeks ago, every one of them will be able to take leave from work just to mentor young people. So I'm talking about broad solutions, not this one-by-one stuff.
Okay, thank you. So for our next question, Councilmember White, the DC Council recently voted to support a $500 million investment in Chinatown. How would that impact Ward 8 regarding employment, access to space in Chinatown, business contracts, construction contracts, and things like that?
Great question. So the amount that the city will get back for programs from that $500 million investment is a lot bigger than $500 million. That money goes into our government funds that fund programs across our city. In addition to that, keeping our two sports teams maintains 1,200 to 2,000 full-time jobs and about 2,000 part-time jobs as well. And we are making sure that many of those jobs go to DC residents and specifically residents of Ward 8. But we need to make sure we're going further. So I'm talking to Monumental about opportunities for local businesses, local artists. The economy downtown being strong is going to help our entire city, but there are also more opportunities for Ward 8 businesses, entrepreneurs, and artists to get broader visibility inside Capital One Arena. And that's something I'm working with Monumental Sports on right now.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Grant, same question. How would that impact Ward 8?
I would say, you know, when I go to Capital One Arena, you see so many people that are employed by Capital One from Ward 8. So, you know, downtown DC businesses, we have to keep it booming and thriving because it employs so many people in our city, especially in Ward 8. But we got to do other things. Like Atlanta is making about $8.2 billion a year in filmmaking, and we're making about 5 to 7 million. We need to increase that, give that energy into filmmaking also, and give our young people opportunity to roll into that, be the next filmmakers, be the next giant city. Why Atlanta is the only places that we can go to make films. Let's make DC the next film making city, and we can make about $7 to $8 billion and add that to our economy.
Thank you. Any other concerns or additions? Mr. White.
I'm gonna give you each 30 seconds to respond. Okay, so hold on, Mr. Moderator. Let me reset the timer. Okay, Councilmember White, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to hear more about this plan. The biggest impediment to filmmaking in the district government in DC is federal restrictions that DC has been trying to lift from the federal government for many years with no success. The other thing we need to make sure is that we understand whether we're spending money well. If you look at the return on investment for what we spend trying to attract films to come here, we lose money at this point. So the idea that we're just going to incentivized and there are going to be more films in DC is one that is not fully informed.
No, that's not true. That's not true, Robert, at all. I think you need to do more research. You need to go a little deeper and have people do a little bit more research on what's going on. Filmmaking is making cities a lot of money, and if you incentivize it properly, you will see it grow. But you have to put energy into it. You know, don't just cut it off before you, don't cut your nose off before you spite your face.
Okay, thank you. So Councilmember Grant, what will be your most looming proactive legislation to help livability for all our youth, young adults, and elderly? Um, you can answer that.
Well, I'm always about protecting our young people and our seniors. That's why we go to our senior homes every week and do programming with our seniors, because our seniors are suffering sometimes because people forget about them. They're struggling to make ends meet. A lot of them can't work anymore. So we got to put that energy back into helping our seniors, our most vulnerable people, our most vulnerable constituents in our and DC is sometimes forgetting about our seniors. They're forgetting about our young people. We got to just continue to put that energy into a programs. Why not go to the and play bingo with our seniors? I do it every Tuesday and Wednesday also. That's what we do. We go and be involved so our seniors can have more things and using their energy. They're in there ready. They partying too. You put a little music on, they're ready. So we got to get that energy. We can't forget about the people who paved the way for us.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Councilmember White.
Thank you. So first, we need to make sure we are building stronger young people. One, that's going to make sure that our younger people are standing in the gap better for our seniors, but our seniors are a big part of that. I continue to hear from seniors, some of them retired, some of them semi-retired, who say they want to help young people learn to sew, learn financial literacy and life skills. And we have some models. We have a building in the city now in Ward 4 that is intergenerational. There are seniors and there are young people who have aged out of the adoption system. This is a beautiful model that we can replicate across our city. But we also need to make sure, and this is an important part of that recipe, that we are tapping into the wisdom and experience and love of our seniors, because they can help guide so many of our young people, and our young people can give them in return the services and the help that they need. But we need to make sure that we're creating programs that empower that.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Next question is, my apologies. Next question is, how do you feel about Initiative 83? Do you support it? We can ask Councilmember White.
I don't support Initiative 83 at this time. I think it solves one problem and creates another. And let me say more. The Initiative 80. I'm sorry, to the asker of the question, I'll have to spend some of my answer time explaining what Initiative 83 is. Would you mind saying what it is so I can use my time speaking about my position?
Hey, this is Troy Presswood. I do appreciate the question, Councilmember White. I will just point people to our previous forums where we've talked about Initiative 83, where they can go and watch that. And so I think just for the purposes of the time that we're doing right now, you can just go ahead and just give them your view on it. And then we will, again, point people to our previous forum on it.
Okay.
So we don't, but we can restart your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is this a question or just a regular question? Is this a yes or no or explanation?
It's a 1 minute question.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. So in ranked choice voting, where people get to vote for multiple people, the idea is that it will lead to better elections where people get elected with a majority of votes. My concern is that there is already an election in DC where people get multiple votes. It's the at-large general election. And if you look at the entire history of the at-large race, people bullet vote in DC. So the top vote getter, it gets a ton of votes. Then there are more undervotes than there are votes for the second highest vote getter. So we in DC have a culture of bullet voting. What I've never been able to get a clear answer to is what happens to the integrity of elections and ranked choice voting if the majority of people bullet vote. And so because I'm still not comfortable that we have an answer to that question, I don't support ranked choice voting at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Grant.
No, I do not support ranked choice voting. Because of a few reasons. I feel like we should be putting energy into getting our young people to vote. I think we should be putting energy into making sure high school kids going into high school, as soon as they get there, they know when they're a senior, they're going to vote. Put that energy into our young people. And I don't know where ranked choice voting is going to disturb the Democratic Party in itself. So I'm a little weary about it, and that's why I'm leery. So it hasn't really been fully explained to how it's going to really benefit the Democratic Party. So that's why I say no to it. Because if you're putting something in place that no one really understands and is splitting the city so viciously, then no, I don't agree with it.
Thank you both. What is your plan, Mr. Grant? What is your plan to expand affordable quality housing in all 8 wards?
Great question. Well, affordable housing itself has to be, really affordable. We, everybody's talking about affordable housing, but it's still not affordable. $2,500 a month, $3,500 a month. That's not affordable for people who are making, $40,000 a year, $60,000 a year. That's too expensive. They spending all their money on their living. So I believe that we have to deal with the MFI of the problem, the median family income. We're using median family income from Loudoun County, Montgomery County, and different counties to project what our people making. We got to get a real MFI. We need to lobby HUD and get this MFI straight in Washington, D.C. so people can really pay the right rent rate.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Councilman White, same question.
Thank you so much. This is a question that we've got to take very seriously because people are being priced out of our city, but there are also people who want to come here, start a family, start their future, who can't even get into our city. So when we talk about building more affordable housing, the thing that we have to focus on the most is the return on our investment. We spend so much money on affordable housing, and I continue to believe that we can get more for our investment, which is why I'm looking around the country and around the world for new models. As I've been chairing the housing committee for just over a year now, I've gotten to work. But it's not just how much affordable housing, it's we need multi-bedroom affordable housing for families. We need ownership opportunities. I'm actively working to fix the DC Housing Authority so that we can get over 1,000 public housing units back online. I hate to say it, but changing the MFI will not at all change our problem, even a little bit. All it will do is lower the income of people eligible for affordable housing in the city. It will not help us build one additional unit. So we want to continue to focus on those solutions.
Mr. Grant, if you have anything else to add, you can be given 30 seconds if you would like.
Well, we definitely have to bring back the mixed housing model where, we have different levels of income within the same unit. So we can create a community again. I believe in a community. I feel like we've gotten away from being a community again. And I really grew up in Washington, D.C. Mom's bought her first house for $100,000 off of Minnesota Avenue. And, we were able to afford to live here. Somewhere along the line, someone gave up our city and we're not able to afford to live here anymore. And we need to backtrack and find out what happened.
Thank you. Thank you both. So my question is, what is your plan to promote youth development and provide more resources for young people in Ward 8?
Is that for me? Youth development. One, we need more programs for our young people. One of my colleagues, Councilmember Matt Fruman, has a bill to expand after-school programs, sports, music, the arts. That is what we need available for all of our young people. The second thing we need is vocational education opportunities. So young kids who are not planning to go to college can graduate high school making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That is one of my priorities that I'm working to get done right now. Mentors for our young people. Young people are facing trauma and challenges unlike anything that we have ever faced. They went through a global pandemic. They're living in a time of high violence in our city, like many of us who are a little older did experience that piece, but they don't have enough supports. If we provide the supports, the mentors, and the programs for our young people, we are going to catch most of them. We are going to see them reach their highest heights. But if we don't do that, we're going to continue to see more young people go down the wrong roads and end up locked up before they realize that they could have and should have made better choices.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Mr. Grant.
This comes down to equity. You know, young people want equity just as much as when you grown. You know, equity is the key to saving our community, putting it back into our community. You know, I've been talking for about 3.5 years about vocational education to the council, doing testimonies in front of the council committee of the whole on education about vocational education. No one was listening. Now it's time to vote. Everybody's putting out. Now you want to put out a bill. I'm confused about that. You know, we've been talking about this for years, trying to get you to be involved with vocational education, Robert. Now you're talking about vocational education. It to me, and I appreciate it now, but you know, let me show you how we can really do it. Let me show you how we can really put certain things in vocational education that's innovative, new wave, and I think we can work together.
Thank you, Mr. White. If you have something to add, you have 30 seconds.
I appreciate it. I'd be happy to work with Mr. Grant on this. I've been working on vocational education for years. The first step is not usually to introduce a bill because the administration can do this without legislation. So I spent a lot of time trying to push them in the right direction. Once you hit a roadblock, you take a different route. But then it's not just in introducing a vocational education bill. It's making sure that it's designed in a way that empowers unions, that makes sure kids who go through programs actually end up in high-paying careers. So trying to make sure we get this right. I want to be right. And that's why we've been putting in the work for years. So I appreciate that.
Thank you both. So final question is, how would you ensure that the concerns and voices of Ward 8 residents are heard and represented on the DC Council? Mr. Grant.
Well, most people know that I'm a fighter. I make sure that I fight for Ward 8 in all wards. I'm a Ward 7 baby, but you know, it was a Ward 7 before, and we Ward 8 was one of the last little wards, and we love Ward 8. So, you know, it's one of the most powerful wards. And my office is in Ward 8 on Martin Luther King Avenue. And a lot of my energy is toward Ward 8. If you go up and down Ward 8, you'll see me up and down Ward 8 because that's what I believe in, my family over in Ward 8. Because when we forget about the people who need it the most, then we forget about what Washington, D.C. is and who Washington, D.C. really represents. And we can never forget about what Washington, D.C. is. And it's about family. It's about friends. It's about going out and have your nice little summertime cookout, going to Fort DuPont Park, listening to Pieces of a Dream. Let's bring that back where we don't have to be ducking bullets every day.
Thank you both. Any other remarks?
Wait, council member, did you answer the question?
I don't think it is.
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm going to give you a minute. Go right ahead.
Thank you. How to hear the voices in Ward 8? You got to listen. And so listening means going to our senior homes just to talk to them about what they're experiencing, what's working, what's not working, what they need. Listening to our young people, going to their schools, asking them, what are we missing? If you could change one thing today, what would it be? And really putting those into action. That's what I do for our young people, making sure that we're creating ways for people to reach me that aren't just in the Wilson building. I do community office hours differently every single year. So I'm reaching the people who don't go to the ANC meetings and don't go to the hearings. You've got to make yourself accessible. But beyond that, you've got to make sure you're listening to people. The legislation that I develop, the programs I develop generally come from the community, not from inside my head, not from inside the Wilson building, but listening to people in our community and responding to it. I have been fighting for our communities. I've created programs in Ward 8 that don't exist anywhere else in our city because we owe it to Ward 8 to continue to show up and help make up for, frankly, lost time.
I thank both of you. And just a quick follow-up question. Because it is, it's easy for you all to reach out to us. However, we do have a responsibility as well to reach out to you all. We can't just sit back, see something, and don't, respond or do nothing to it. So how can you, because you mentioned it, Councilmember White, how can you make it more available or make us not more heard, but more available for us to willingly come to you? Because a lot of us, we don't know how, kind of. So how would you take the steps to do that?
Yeah. So one, email me, rwhite@dccouncil.gov. Hit me through social media. You will see me in the community, whether it's at libraries, senior homes, elementary schools. So I try to make it easy to reach me. But if folks need help, reach out to me. Folks around the city know, in terms of constituent services, I have one of the most responsive offices in this city. And as people need help and also need difficult things done, my office is the place many of them go.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
202-912-0216 is a number to call. Anybody can contact me directly. And I feel like that's what we have to be doing, direct contacts. What did we get away from the Marion Barry love when he can pick up his phone? We got to get back to that system where the people who are public servants and who are getting hired are picking up their phones and are making sure that the things you need get to the right people. And that's where I am. I'm going to make sure that we pick up the phone.
I thank both of you. Okay. So final question. How can the Ward 8 Democrats support your work and your efforts? You both have 30 seconds each. We can start with Mr. White. Councilmember White.
Ward 8 Dems, continue to be involved. First, vote and make sure people in your community are voting. Get involved in a campaign that you believe in, because we're working to continue to make changes in this city, real changes. I'm not running to stay elected. I'm running to keep making changes. And we need all the help we can get because government can't do it alone. Community can't do it alone. But when we're working together, we are doing powerful things. And we have proved that over the past 7 years. And we're about to show them even more in this next term.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Well, I want to thank the Ward 8 Dems for having this. The Ward 8 Dems can be involved by just continue to tell people to vote. It's really about getting our numbers up, especially in Ward 8. We have like a 22% voting rate of people who can vote. We need to get that up 60, 70%. We need to be the one who control the city as far as voting. Let's don't give up on our power to vote. That is going to be the way we change and get the city back together.
Thank you. And here is closing statements. We're gonna have both of your closing statements. You're gonna have 1 minute each. And we're gonna start with Mr. Grant.
All right. Thank you so much. First, I want to thank everybody for showing up to this important forum. And the question I want to ask is, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of bullets flying in our community and our young babies dying out here, and mothers crying and fathers crying and uncles crying? Aren't you tired of grandmothers can't get off their porch? I'm tired because every day we're facing this issue in our city. And I feel like, as much as, our council is there, they're not there. We have to have a council that's coming together, working out solutions together, not a council that's separate, that's always beefing with the mayor. And, we got to have someone in there that can have a solution base and be able to get the job done. I'm that person to get the job done. I'm Rodney Red Grant. I've been working in this beautiful field of entertainment for a long time, but I'm also a businessman, a philanthropist, and a humanitarian. I'm going to continue to be that for the city of DC and for Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Councilmember White.
Thank you. Thank you all for hosting this. I'm going to tell you what we all know. DC is an incredible city, but we also have real problems. And we need to make sure that we have people fighting for us who are going to produce results. Everybody can point to the problems. But since I've been in office, early childhood education, addressing crime, vocational education, mentors for young people, free masters in social work program, full reform of the housing authority, huge leaps in supporting returning citizens, first jurisdiction in the nation to restore voting rights to all incarcerated people, keeping teachers in our schools, financial literacy for our young people. That is just a fraction of what we have been doing, because I come here to work. I'm serious about solving problems. I'm fighting for our people. And I don't look at issues and say, oh, these are big problems. I see it issues and I say, how do we get to solutions? That's what I've done. That's what I want to continue to do. That's why I'm asking for your vote and your support in this election. This election is about the future of our economy and the future of crime and problem solving in a way that supports our communities. And I'm here for the fight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank both of you for your time today and you being willing to share your proactivity here for those in Ward 8, such as you, myself, and young adults and other people. And so once again, we thank you. So now we're going to turn it back over to Troy to provide us with updates and different things like that. So once again, we thank you both for coming on, and then we're going to have Troy.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Calique. Let me make sure we are okay. All right. I think I have to remove a spotlight here. Oh, no, cool. All right, we're good. All right. So, okay. Thank you, Calique, for that. And thank you for moderating that part of our program today. And thank you all for being here. Thank you to Councilmember White and to Rodney Grant. It was very spirited. I hope that members of the Ward 8 community learned a thing or two from the questions that we heard today. And so I am thankful for their participation and for all of you. I did drop into the chat, and we can do that online as well for those who want to go back and view the forum on Initiative 83. But very quickly, because I didn't want to cut into the time of the candidates, but that Initiative 83 as it stands now will, if it is going to make it to the ballot, and it's still going through a process here, it will do two things. A, it will create ranked choice voting in the District of Columbia. You've heard both candidates weigh in on that. And it will also open up our primaries to any candidate or any person who is non-party affiliated. So, or just from a different party. So let's say you can have Republicans voting in Democratic primary, vice versa. You can have those who are who have not decided on a party. They can just decide at the very last minute. The DC Democratic Party, as well as the Ward 8 Democrats, we are against that. And so we are telling our members to vote no against Initiative 83 because of what it does. But rest assured that the fight is not over on both sides. And so make sure you stay tuned. We're going to continue to update and inform the public about what's happening with Initiative 83. But for right now, we are totally against it because it does two things: bring ranked choice voting, which we are against, as well as opening up our primaries, which also we are against. Our party is open to everybody. Only thing you have to do is tick off a box and say, I want to be a Democrat. You are allowed in. That's all. You don't have to pay a fee, anything. You just have to commit. And so to have our party, our primaries opened up to everybody who just decide, they want to be a part of it on that day is a no starter for us. So I dropped in the link where you can go back and look. It's about halfway through that forum there that we had. Halfway through, you can watch it if you like. Okay. All right, I want to talk just a little bit about what we have going on. First and foremost, if you want to support the Ward 8 Democrats, and we hope that you do, I have up on your screen right now a QR code that you can use. It takes you straight to our ActBlue account, and there you can make a donation. It could be small, it could be $5, $10, it could be $100, up to $250. We would certainly appreciate that. All of the money that we collect goes into a pot where we can use it for GOTV, or get out the vote efforts. You know, we have a number of challenges around turnout in our ward. And so what we know is that if we invest in those low voter turnout districts, those precincts, where we can just put a little bit more investment, maybe it's a text digital campaign, maybe it's door knocking, maybe it's leafleting, we believe we could see a change, but we have to have money to do it. So how can you help? Well, I have it up on the screen there. You can scan that QR code and make a donation today. Again, no donation is too small. You can become a sustainer, or you could make a one-time donation. It really is up to you, but that is how we do the work here in Ward 8, is through member donations. You can also go to our website at ward8dems.com. You can click on the donate button at the very top, and it will take you to the same place. And those of you who received our newsletter, well, there's a place in that newsletter as well. You can go back and take a look at that, that you can click on, that will take you to our ActBlue page. And I know my treasurer would really appreciate me putting in this alert here. I want to talk, oh, by the way, we are your local political party. And so we have lots of ways that you can work with us. On the Ward 8 Democrats. We have a number of committees, from youth to seniors to public relations to fundraising, something that we just talked about. There's so many ways that you can use your gifts and talents here at your local political party. So I invite you to send us an email at info@ward8dems.com. You can even send it here on the chat, those of you who are watching live on the Zoom, or if you're going to watch this presentation on demand, if you're watching it later, you too can send us an email at info@ward8dems.com. We'll get you connected to your committee chairs so that we can do the work that it takes to really engage our members, our voters here in Ward 8. So we are your local party. Please get involved. Now, I want to briefly just talk about what's happening. I mentioned at the top of the program that on April 29th, the DC Board of Elections will start to send out the mail-in ballots. And with those mail-in ballots, you can do a couple of things. One, you can mail them in. You can take them to a mailbox. You can give it to a mail carrier, take it to the post office, anywhere in the city. It doesn't have to be in Ward 8. It doesn't have to be in the city, actually. But you need to take it to a mailbox and then for it to be received. I would encourage you to sign up for a program that the Board of Elections offers, so you can track your ballot and you can see when they've received it. You can see when they processed it. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't attach to you in terms of who you voted for, but it does let you know based on the scanning of the envelope that it's been received. And so I encourage you to do that. The other way you can do that with your ballot is you can actually take it to a Dropbox location. And here are the Dropbox locations in our ward. You can take it to any Dropbox location in the city, but here are the ones here in the ward. And so feel free to take a screen grab of that, a screenshot of that, so you know where they are. They may just be right around the corner from where you live. And tentatively, they are scheduled to open on Friday, May 10th, which is a national holiday for me. But on Friday, May 10th, they will open up that morning, and they will remain open for almost a month until the last day for voting, which is going to be June 4th. So if you don't live near a mailbox, or if the drop boxes are closer to you, you can take them there, and they pick them up every night and scan them in as well. And that way you know that they received it. I mentioned the part about receiving it because if they didn't receive it, you can actually reach out and say you want to go and vote in person if for some reason something happened to your ballot. But the first thing you need to know is if they received it or not. So think about taking part in that program that they offer. So again, these are the drop box locations. They spread all across the ward. And then on Sunday, May 26th through June 2nd. So Sunday, May 26th through Sunday, June 2nd from 8:30 a.m. until 7 p.m., with the exception of Monday, May 27th, which is Memorial Day. These early vote centers will be open as well, and you can go there and drop off your ballot, or you can go there and vote. You can just, if you don't want to vote with the ballot that you receive in the mail, you can go there and vote in person. Maybe you need to update your voter registration, or you want to sign up for voting. You can do to vote. You can do all of that at an early vote center. And here are the locations on your screen. Again, they may be near you, so do a screen grab of this just in case you are interested in going to an early vote center during those days. And then, of course, there is the final day to vote, which is Election Day, Tuesday, June 4th. The polls, or rather the vote centers, will open up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they close at 8 o'clock p.m. And here are the locations spread again all around the ward. They include our Navy Yard area, as well as our southern tip of the ward and everything in the middle. And so here are the locations. They may look familiar to you. You may also see that some of the previous precincts are missing. That's because the Board of Elections have moved away from a precinct model and they're using what we call a vote center model. So these vote centers will be open. You can go to any of these locations. They're not tied to where you live anymore. So you can go to any of these locations or any of them in the city. But here are the ones in Ward 8. Screen grab that so you have it. And again, this is for you so that you can vote on Election Day, June 4th. So I'll stop there. Just once again, encourage you to check out everything on our website at ward8dems.com. We will have more information there, as well as a special election day or election website called Ward 8 Votes. And so that'll be up and going and be refreshed very soon. And again, we want to encourage you to come out on Saturday, May 18th. That'll be an in-person event at Sycamore and Oak, where we'll have the Ward 8 Council Candidate Forum, as well as Delegate to Congress, and a straw poll. So if you like what you heard today, if there's a particular candidate you're leaning toward, a candidate that you like, that you want to support and show your support for, well, we encourage you to come out on Saturday, May 18th. For that event so that you can vote in the straw poll. You can actually vote and leave. All right. With that being said, I'm going to actually turn it back over to my good friend, Calique. Calique, please, at the end of this program, you must, share with us at least your Cash App or something, because I want to make sure that people are loving on you. You have done such an amazing job for us so far. And I really want to make sure that people who feel the way I do have a way to support you with a little bit of change. And you know what I mean? So, everyone needs a little change. I need some change right now. So I'll put my Cash App in if y'all don't. So, but I do want to just say thank you so much. I think you've been just a brilliant moderator so far. And so with that in mind, again, this is your choice, your voice. And this is our Ward 8 Forum. And this point, we are scheduled to talk more with our shadow U.S. Senator and our shadow U.S. Representative candidates. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Calique. Thank you so much. And we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Troy. Once again, if y'all probably forgot who I was, Calique, Thurgood Marshall Academy Junior. And we're going to proceed with the forum, engaging in three more awesome three more awesome conversations.
Two more.
Okay, I'm my fault. See, I knew it. Two more awesome conversations. And we're those who are becoming the next shadow U.S. Senator and shadow representative for the District of Columbia. And so it's going to be pretty similar. We're going to listen in, hear what they have to say, get their insight of how they're going to, impact Ward 8, the great Ward 8. their policy proposals, their visions, and their goals to assist us as citizens and community members and leaders. So our conversation will last about a good 45 minutes, and it's going to be also debate style. And then initially, I'll throw in a couple follow-up questions here and there. And it'll just be a good dialogue and conversation that we're going to have today. And for those who want to ask questions, you can use the Q&A feature, or those who are online, you can type it in, and you can use hashtag Ward8Votes, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. So with that being said, you can go ahead.
LaJoy, you had a question.
Oh, yep. I just wanted to let everybody know. Hi, everybody. I'm LaJoy. I am your timekeeper. When you get to 30 seconds, you're going to see this. It may be backwards because it's reflecting 30 seconds. And then when your time is up, you are going to see stop. Okay. All right, Calique, back to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So as far as this round, each candidate will have 1 minute, 60 seconds for just 1 minute for an opening statement. And we're going to start with 1 minute responses to questions and move to 30 seconds as we near the end of our session. We may also move to rapid fire questions with short responses for very short questions. So any little, rebuttals, we'll try to incorporate that, but we're going to keep it in order fashion, do things in decency and in order. So if there are any rebuttals, you'll be given 30 seconds to respond. And yeah, so any questions, comments, concerns thus far? If not,
Troy, can you check your chat for me, please? Thank you.
Do you have a question or a comment, Mr. Eugene?
No, don't have
Okay,
any comments.
thank you. So the shadow U.S. Senator and the shadow U.S. Representative for the District of Columbia is a non-voting symbolic representative elected by the residents of the Washington, D.C., us. While they are not officially seated in the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives, their primary role is to advocate for D.C. statehood and for congressional representation. The shadow senator and representative serve as a vocal proponents for granting D.C. statehood, which will provide the district's 700,000 plus population full voting rights and representation in both the House of Representatives and the Senate on par with existing states. It's an open seat in the shadow U.S. Senate race, as current shadow U.S. Senator Michael Brown is not running for re-election after 3 terms. In the shadow U.S. representative race today, we have Owolewa. Did I say that right?
Oye Owolewa.
Owolewa. Okay, running for re-election a second term. Linda Gray is the challenger. And we're going to meet our candidates, and we're going to open up our ears and hear what they have to say. So let's meet the candidates for shadow U.S. Senate and shadow representative. We're going to start with your opening statement. And yeah, for your opening statement, you will have 1 minute for opening statement. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to start with Miss Gray. You can start your opening statement, or will we?
Okay. Good afternoon, Ward 8, and thank you for having me. My name is Linda Gray, and I am a candidate for U.S. Representative. I am a 5th-generation Washingtonian. I currently serve as the vice chair of the D.C. Democratic Party. I'm an at-large member. I live in Ward 4 in Tacoma. I am a former biology teacher. 1 year I taught at Ballou, a former assistant principal, and a retired principal from DC Public Schools. And I am a serious supporter of DC statehood. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Miss Gray. We're gonna have now Mr. Owolewa. I'm sorry if I keep messing that up.
No, you got it, Calique. You got it, Calique. Good afternoon, Ward 8 family. My name is Dr. Oye Owolewa. I'm an elected healthcare worker. I'm the U.S. representative of Washington, D.C. And just as important, I'm a Ward 8 resident. I've been in this role for about a few years now, leading the charge for D.C. statehood, bringing the improbability of my being a Nigerian American to increase the awareness of D.C. statehood all across this country. We've been numerous publications. We've had the Supercar Rally for DC statehood, get people interested in statehood. And we have served on a panel of CBC Week to talk about DC statehood. In addition to talking about statehood, we're also plugging the holes of what statehood doesn't provide for us, whether it's our criminal justice system, whether it's our educational system, whether it's our local autonomy. We did just that. We've launched a bunch of clinics to get our returning citizens back to work and removing their barriers to reentry. We're helping young people find future careers that can keep them in DC. And last but not least, we're helping minority business owners learn how to get contracts, grants, and certifications to build up in our nation's capital. Again, I'm thankful to be here. I'm asking for your vote for grant us 2 more years. I'm excited to chat with you, Calique, and be here with the Ward 8 Dems.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we're going to have our opening statement from Mr. Kinlow.
Well, good afternoon, Ward 8. Hi, I'm Eugene Kinlow. I am here in the Bellevue section of Ward 8, where I've lived since I was a young kid. I've attended Ballou High School and graduated with my brothers and sisters. I am a former chair of the Ward 8 Democrats, a former Ward 8 committee man, and a former delegate for Mr. Obama, the Democratic Convention in 2008. So Democrats matter. I'm running for the position because I'm passionate about DC voting rights, statehood, and human rights right here in Washington, DC. Because here in the city some people call the most powerful city in the world, we are treated as second-class citizens. And I think that is wrong. I'm running because I have been doing the work of the senator. There's no one else who's running for this position has done the work that I am doing now and have done. I've been at every stage of our development and our advocacy for DC voting rights and statehood for the last 20 years. Every significant protest I've helped organize. I was there in 2004 when the Democrats were at the convention in Boston and organized the Tea Party. I was there in 2008 when we were in Denver and organized an event from the Mint, because we talk about taxation without representation. So I was there. I was there in 2011 when Mayor Gray, Mayor Bowser.
Mr. Kinlow, you're at time, my dear. You're at time.
Pardon?
You're at time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vote Kinlow.
Can you all see me? Can you see this? Like when I hold up signs, you guys can see me?
I got you behind the banner. So let me move this banner so I can see you. Thank you, LaJoy.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, so last but not least, Mr. Jain.
Hi, all. First of all, I want to thank the Ward 8 Democrats and Calique and Ms. Johnson and Mr. Presswood for hosting this forum. It's so important for people across the city. And can you hear me?
I can't talk to you.
Sorry. Okay. So I'm so excited for people across the city and especially in Ward 8 to understand what the positions can do and learn more about who we are as candidates. So my name is Ankit Jain. I'm a Ward 2 resident in the Mount Vernon Triangle area, and I'm a voting rights attorney with Fair Vote. Before that, I worked for 4 years as an attorney with the Sierra Club doing environmental law. I am running for this position to be an effective, a collaborative, and an independent voice for DC as your next shadow senator. Statehood is a passion of mine. It's an issue I've been working on for many years now, and I have the vision for what this position can do, and I bring a fresh perspective on how to get what we need in DC out of Congress. And I have the legislative advocacy experience we need from our chief advocate before the US Senate through my work with Fair Vote and with the Sierra Club. And just a little bit personally about me, I'm a lifelong DC sports fan, especially a Wizards fan ever since the Jordan years when I was lucky enough to help introduce Michael Jordan onto the court, just got plucked from the stands randomly and got to high five Michael Jordan. And I am a biker. I don't own a car, and I'm a Metro super user and ready to fight for federal funding for Metro. Thanks so much, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we thank each and every one of you for your opening statements. Lovely. And we're going to jump right into the question. So our first question that we have is, what will be your top priorities and legislative agenda as a shadow senator or representative in advocating for DC statehood? We're going to start with Mr. Kinlow.
All right. So the top priority is DC statehood. Without it, we're relegated to being second-class citizens. So the first step is to make sure that we can get the House, the Senate, and the president to vote for it. We've passed the bill twice in the House over the last 2 cycles of Congress. In the Senate, we're at about 46 senators. We need to increase that. West Virginia was not supportive. Arizona was not supportive. We need to make sure that, one, as Democrats, that we get all Democrats on board. And that is the agenda. So this is an election year, so we need to urge everyone. We need to urge folk who come out in a part of the states to encourage their elected Democrats to support our legislation. I believe we can get statehood, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. But what first we have to do, what we need to do to convince all of us as Democrats to support DC statehood at the convention this year and beyond.
Thank you, Mr. Kinlow. Ms. Gray, I'm sorry.
Same question?
Yes,
Okay. What I plan to do, well, we're already on the ground running with this. We plan to really have a serious demonstration and illustration for DC statehood and the need for DC statehood at the Chicago Convention. For me, again, it is reclaiming the House. That is something that we have to do. We need 4 votes on the side of the Senate. We know Manchin is leaving. We're hoping that Representative Gallegos from Arizona can win, because that will be one of the seats we need. We need to work with Senator King in Maine, which is one of my states, as vice chair of the Eastern Regional Caucus. And we need 2 more votes on the Senate side. If we can gain back the House and keep our Senate majority, our Democratic majority on the Senate, it will get to the president, and he does fully support statehood.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with what both Eugene and Linda have said in terms of statehood being the #1 priority. I'll add 2 other priorities I'll have as shadow senator. One is stopping laws that the council passes and that the mayor signs from being overturned by Congress, and stopping Congress in general from interfering in our local affairs, which has just happened last year and happens all too frequently. And the third thing is getting federal funding for DC priorities like Metro, like housing, affordable housing, and other issues like that. So those are my priorities. In terms of the statehood fight, how are we going to make it happen, right? That's what people want to know. And what I have yet to see really from our movement is a clear forward-thinking strategy on how are we going to get the statehood bill passed. You know, we have only limited influence on what happens on a national level in terms of what the Congress looks like. But what we can do is, when we have the right Congress, do we in DC have the right strategy? Are we ready to push the statehood bill through? And that's what I think we've been missing a little bit from the statehood movement. So the #1 thing I'll do is make sure we all get on the same page and have a clear forward-thinking strategy. Here is how we're going to pass the statehood bill. Here's what DC Vote's going to do. Here's what the shadow senators are going to do. Here's what every single person in the ecosystem of statehood will do to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Mr. Owolewa.
Yes, thank you for that question. And one good thing about being in this forum with 3 other statehood activists is that we all get to agree on certain things that we've been doing for the past few years. I believe in terms of this role, we have to not only do things in the short term in terms of getting more senators to be on board with DC statehood, get more House of Representatives, Democratic representatives elected to support statehood. We also have to think about the long-term plan as well. The people who are running state legislative races right now are going to be tomorrow's Congress member candidates. We have to get them as well. That's why we went to West Virginia and introduced the DC statehood resolution. That's why we're going to Texas and doing the same thing, because we understand that young people being involved, future candidates being involved, is going to help us flip this conversation into something that's more viral. And instead of being a page 9 issue, it will be a page 1 issue.
Thank you, sir. Any rebuttals or other remarks?
Yeah, I've got just a clear rebuttal. And I've heard.
Hold on, Mr. Kinlow. You're going to get 30 seconds and then, okay. And
thank you. Let me know.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I heard that there is no strategy, and I think it's clearly that there is a strategy and a path forward for DC statehood, and there has always been. But what we have lacked is just the investment. And that's what we need to work on. We need to make the investment and the commitment out in the states. We all see McDonald's. We all know McDonald's. We know all the products McDonald's has, but they tell you each and every day what you should be buying from them. We need to be doing the same thing about statehood. People are not going to act on an issue unless we tell them, unless we show them and show them again. And then we keep showing them why we need to be first-class citizens, and being a second-class citizen doesn't matter.
And I'll add something as well, if it's okay, Calique and Ms. Johnson.
30 seconds. You have 30 seconds.
I'll wait for you. Okay, great. I think what I have seen, and what many people who I've talked to have seen, is that the different parts of the statehood movement aren't really working together in the way that they could or should be. And that has created problems where we have the mayor saying one thing and DC Vote saying another thing and the council saying a third thing. And I think one of the reasons we see that is because we're not all on the same game plan. And that's what I want to make sure we do, that we have somebody be a unifier in this position, and making sure everyone is working together from the same playbook. And I haven't seen that yet. And that's what I want to bring to this position.
Okay. And Ms. LaJoy, I'm going to have to rebut that again.
Wait,
I have to.
Hold on, wait. Sorry, that's the timer, y'all. Hold on, Mr. Kinlow. Calique, did you want to give Oye or Ms. Gray another chance to add on before we do another rebuttal? I'm going to kick it to you.
If any other one of you have a rebuttal.
Well, the only thing that I would add on to that is that I'm not sure that we don't have a clear strategy. I think there are different pathways to get there. For me, my pathway has been through state parties, is to get 100% approval and an official vote from every state party in this country to support DC statehood. I mean, that opened up a pathway for us to, get to more congressional members. So I'm not sure that we don't have a strategy, that we're not on the same page. I think it's just different ways that we do things, and that just happens to be one of the ways that I've been successful. So I add that to the mix.
Can I do a rebuttal? One thing that I don't like, and I think Ward 8 doesn't appreciate, is solo credit for group action, right? We all were part of this together in terms of getting certain Democratic parties to support DC statehood. In addition, this shouldn't be a Democrat versus Republican issue. This should be about a matter of keeping us equal to our friends and neighbors in Maryland and Virginia. Beyond that, we need to make sure young people, regardless of what their political affiliation is, understands the importance of having DC representatives voting and DC residents having their voice heard on a national policy standpoint.
May I ask a question?
Hold on, Ms. Gray. Calique.
Hold on. Okay, so we're gonna do one follow-up rebuttal for each question. So as far as we're gonna do one from each person, one rebuttal for each question. So we're gonna have to move on to the next question. Which is, what unique perspectives or experiences would you bring to the role of shadow senator or representative? We're gonna start with Ms. Gray.
Well, the perspectives that I bring will be the things that I will do. First of all, the one thing that I do know about this particular position is that the first thing, first and foremost, is that you have to support this issue, and you have to continue to teach and show people what it means really not to be a state. I have found that when we do that, people get it, they get it, and they understand it. The second thing you have to do, and I think to be on this job, which is a voluntary position, is to get on that hill, to talk to members of Congress, but also to be there, present in the moment when there's an oversight committee or an oversight hearing and they are attacking home rule. We need to be packing the room.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Jain, same question.
Yes. So I am a voting rights attorney, right? I work on voting rights issues every day. I work directly with a lot of the nationwide democracy groups that are essential for our push for DC statehood, whether you talk about Campaign Legal Center or the Brennan Center or ACLU, and the list goes on. And so I have experience in advancing voting issues on a national and a state level issue through my work. And one of the things that I have learned is that people often misunderestimate or underestimate the importance of these advocacy organizations in advancing our agenda. And so what often happens is that advocacy organizations will write a bill and you'll have a legislator be the champion and introduce the bill. And so I've seen that process in action. I've been a part of that process. And so I'm going to bring that experience to this position and my connections to these nationwide organizations, who are the ones who have members in the districts of the senators and representatives who we need to vote for us. We don't have the vote in Congress, so we need to be pushing people who do have the vote to push their representatives to advocate for us. And so that's what I'll bring to this position.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Oye, Mr. Oye, Mr. Oye.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Unique perspectives to bring to this office. One thing about being an incumbent is I can't just tell you what I want to do. I can tell you what I've been doing. Here in Ward 8, we lead through service. We're not a lecture community. We're not going to do things based off of what is important to us. It's how you relate to the next person. Now, I could have just said, hey, we did expansion programs just because it's a great thing to do, but it also ties into statehood. Because DC is not a state, we're restricted in how much we're able to expunge records. So rather than just yell at people about why voting is important, we get to tell people about how it impacts their lives. Now, there's a conversation about me being on the Hill. I have relationships on the Hill. The reason why I was able to be on the Congressional Black Caucus panel is because Stephen Horsford knows who I am and respects what I do. Because Representative Plasker knows who I am and respects what I do. Because Don Beyer knows who I am and respects what I do. It's not based on how well I can speak on a stage. It's based off the impact we have in our communities and what we can bring to the legislative process.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kinlow.
Right, and the perspective I bring is I think it's kind of a full universe. It's one of being an activist, an advocate, a person who's worked up on Capitol Hill, a person who managed the mayor's office of federal and regional affairs and maintained relationships with many elected officials throughout the country. It's about a person who's worked with many national organizations, including Fair Vote, NAACP, Leadership Conference, League of Women Voters, many national organizations that have been carrying water for our issue. So a person who's able to work through organizations, work with the elected officials to build a perspective, and a person who's worked on public awareness campaigns out in states. I worked with the party, the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C., and the Democratic Party in West Virginia to counter some of the things that Senator Manchin has said and build support in the state. So that's the perspective I build, kind of a broader perspective that involves the people, the players, and the places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinlow. Okay. So any other comments? Actually, I do have a follow-up question for Mr. Oye. You have 30 seconds to respond to a follow-up question. You mentioned that we can tell people why voting is important rather than shoving it down their throat and yelling at them. My question to you is, why do you feel that people don't more so choose to vote nowadays?
Well, when I've talked to people about voting, some of those who are reluctant to vote don't understand how important it is. They're used to things not going their way. They're used to being told or talking to their elected official every 4 years, every 2 years when it's time for re-election time. Being a former ANC commissioner, I understand it's important to lead through your service and let it talk for you. The reason why I'm able to go into almost any neighborhood, regardless of what my background is, what my name is because I've been putting in the work. We've gone to classroom getting kids interested in science careers. We've been going to neighborhoods talking to them about what they care about. And that has really transferred forward. And that's how someone with a different name can keep winning these elections.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any add-ons? If not, we can move on to the next question. So beyond statehood, Mr. Jain, what other issues would you focus on as a voice for DC residents?
Yeah, so number one is working with our council and with Congress to make sure that the Congress is not interfering in our local affairs. Just a little over a year ago, we had Congress overturn a bill passed by the council for the first time in, I believe, 20 or 30 years. And so I will be number one thing I promise to anybody watching this is that I will advocate to protect any DC law from being overturned by Congress, no matter what my personal opinion is on the issue, no matter what the mayor's opinion is or any member of the DC Council's opinion is. So that's one of the main things that I'll be making sure I'm doing is working with the council and Congress to kind of be a liaison to understand what can we do to stop the Congress from getting involved in the first place. And if they choose to get involved, how can we make sure that they're not successful in overturning our local efforts? I'll say a second thing is making sure that Congress is working positively with DC and not negatively. Congress has for years prohibited DC from using our own local tax dollars to subsidize abortions for low-income women. They prohibited us from legalizing the sale of marijuana. Those are things I would work to get rid of. And I would work to get federal funding for things like Metro, which is facing a huge fiscal crisis and could really use some federal funds to keep our service levels that our city needs. You're on mute, Calique.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jain. Mr. Kinlow, same question.
Okay, well, I think that it's a full-time job to defend democracy in Washington, D.C. And you're really going to spend a lot of time there because you've got a number of members of Congress who will always say something stupid about Washington, D.C. that will attack us on whether we have too many cameras and that maybe we shouldn't have those cameras, or our ability to tax cannabis, or a woman's right to choose. Right now, in this particular cycle of political theater, you've got candidates for president on the other side, I'm not going to mention his name, saying that he'd like to minimize Washington, D.C. and remove the Home Rule Act and put it under a local control. Well, that will be a full-time job. This has been almost a do-nothing Congress, and many Republican members of Congress have one of their top talking points has always been Washington, D.C., that they're not doing a great job. I think that we need to be on offense as well. You attack me in Washington, D.C., I'm going to attack you back in your state. I'm going to attack you back in your city. You talk about my crime, I'm going to talk about your crime. And I'll be very specific with it as well. So we need to be on offense.
Yes, sir.
Full-time job.
Yes, sir. Ms. Gray, same question.
Oh, the thing that I would do, one thing, let me just say this. I have to agree with Mr. Kinlow. This is a full-time job. It's a volunteer position, but it is a full-time job. And whenever there is a need to be on the Hill and to be in those oversight hearings, I will be there and try to pack that room with as many Democrats so that the GOP actually has to look us in our faces, as they did on March 7th, 2 days after the council signed off on Secure DC. We had a representative from Congress to introduce a crime bill for DC and look me in the face and say, if DC can't control their crime, we will. We should have had that run pack, and I don't ever want to see something like that happen again with us not being there in full force to face them with what they do when they try to attack us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Oye.
Yes, I would like to add that to that. I agree with everything that was said before, but it's not just about how much time you have, it's about how you use it. As Eugene earlier said, we've gone to West Virginia, not only to write in a local publication about Senator Manchin, but also go on a radio station that he favors to talk about him. Because I'm not just talking to a conservative radio host, I'm talking to their listeners, talking to their voters. As long as we don't have awareness in all 50 states about DC statehood, then those Congress members can hide behind DC statehood. Even those that support DC statehood on paper may not have all the courage once it gets closer and closer and closer. So it's not just about today, it's also about the DC of tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttals or other comments? If not, we can move on to the next question. Next question will be, how would you build coalitions and garner support from members of Congress to advance the cause of DC statehood and autonomy, especially across the aisles with Republicans? We can start with Ms. Gray.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that happened with the GOP primary here in the district, it was the first primary that emphatically denounced Trump, which to me was opportunity, because that means that there are some like-minded Republicans who are probably for statehood who could work with Democrats. And it reminded me of a city council that we once had with Republicans, Dr. Jerry Moore, Carol Schwartz, Hilda Mason, who worked feverishly on behalf of our city. And so I think that there is possibility, and it certainly is worth trying.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr.
Sorry, was that me?
Yes.
I didn't quite catch it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important question. The number one thing is I think we have to be a little bit strategic about it, right? I don't think Ted Cruz is going to be supporting DC statehood, but I think that you could get Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska to support it if you make the right arguments. And she's somebody who's more moderate and who herself lived through a time period when the place she lived in was not a state, was a territory. And so really be strategic about who you're reaching out to. I'm going to work to get Republican support, and I'll, of course, work to get Democratic support and really work with the moderate Democrats, especially talking about people like Mark Kelly in Arizona, like Angus King in Maine, and focusing on the people who are the deciding votes, who are gettable but aren't gotten yet. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leverage my pre-existing relationships with members of Congress and staff members on the Hill. And I'll also make sure I work very closely with the Virginia and Maryland delegations to make sure that they can work with us to advance statehood forward, because they have a vote and they have a lot of a stake in what happens in DC, because so much of what happens in DC affects them too.
Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Kinlow.
All right, so coalition building is very important. When I worked at DC Vote as their director of public affairs, we went from about 20 organizations to over 100, using local organizations first to spiral and leverage to get to national organizations. And that's been very successful. We still have to do that. We got to continue to build to make sure that we've got a presence out in the state, in every state. So it's got to be a 50-state strategy based on the people in the organizations, you know, the League of Women Voters, the human rights organizations, the civil rights organizations, the unions, all of those have favor in Washington, D.C. on our policies, and we need their support. So we have to continue to do that. But we also have to cross enemy lines, right? When we go out to the states. That means talking to people we don't normally talk to. So over the last number of years, I've gone to, last 20 years, almost every Democratic convention to talk about DC voting rights and DC statehood. But I've also gone to the Republican conventions. I've gone with our shadow delegation. I hate saying shadow, but our statehood delegation. I've gone with our delegation, and I've also gone out with our mayor. So we need to do all of those things, but we need to cross enemy lines and be there in the states.
Thank you, Mr. Kinlow. Any other?
Yes, I don't think I've given my minutes.
My apologies. I'm sorry.
No problem, colleague. I know it's 4 people, so it's a little bit more than 2 from last time. Yes, coalition building is important, but the key to coalition building is not the who and the what's, it's the why. It's telling people why DC statehood impacts them. I would not have been able to go to California and talk to folks if I didn't explain to them how more DC votes could increase water purity and infrastructure in their home state. We've done a lot of coalition building, not just with organizations, not just with members of Congress, but also with endorsing organizations. Common Defense, a veterans-led PAC, now asks people running for office if you support DC statehood. They're a nationwide organization. They would not have done so without us pushing for it. Another thing about reaching across the aisle, I've done so. Senator Roger Marshall's office, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, they will only support DC statehood once we find a partnering state go with us, whether it's Republican, Democrat, whether it's slave or a free state. They're not just going to be the first Republican to jump on board with DC statehood. They're going to get trounced. So we have to do our job to make sure we get DC statehood as a priority, and then the Republicans will play ball and find their alternative solution to add their second state to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oye. I do have a follow-up question for Mr. Kinlow. So considering the historical resistance from some members of Congress towards DC being a state, concerns about the city's unique status, how do you plan to navigate deeply integrated, ingrained ideology and effective sway opinions in favor of DC's autonomy?
You know, I think there's a variety of fact patterns that can be used. One, I think that if you looked at polling over the last 10 years, arguments that have been very persuasive for most Americans have been on the tax issue. Taxation without representation is what? Is tyranny. That has responded. That makes people respond. So we've got to use that a little bit more. You got to use our veterans. We have veterans, people who fight and die in wars, yet they have no vote in Congress. The tax issue is very persuasive, and the veterans issue, we got to put them together with our student issues. And there's just so many more issues that we can use, and those are 2 that I would start with.
And is it okay if I just add something, 30 seconds?
Yes, I was going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is when you talk to people who don't live in DC and you explain to them what it means to lack statehood, they get it immediately. unless you're talking to a very partisan Republican, every single person I have talked to is like, what the heck? You guys don't have the right to vote and you're taxed. And so what the problem is people just don't understand. So we need to get this issue in front of people. And I think when we get the issue in front of enough people, that is what is going to break the logjam, that they need to understand this is what it really means to be a resident of Washington, D.C. We are tax-paying American citizens who want the same rights that you have, and we just don't have them. And so I think that's where it comes down to.
And if I can just, it's not quite a rebuttal, but just to add a little flavor to that conversation.
Okay.
Because it may help folk at home as well who don't understand that we in Washington, D.C. pay more taxes than 24 states. We in Washington, D.C. pay number 1 per capita in taxes. Most Americans are concerned about taxes. And so we've got a way to get into, to talk to them. If we were a state, we get $3.2 billion more in Washington, D.C. That $3.2 million will go to our kids, it'll go to our schools, it'll go to our seniors, it'll go to our infrastructure. So we need to be fighting. We need to be fighting. And I think we can share that message with them and they'll understand.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gray, you have something to add?
Yes, I'd like to add to it. I think that people do get it. But one of the things that it can be a very simple conversation. Once you tell people, Congress doesn't take care of us. We take care of ourselves, yet they have the ability to tell us what we can do with our own tax dollars. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to anybody when we say that to them, and they get it and they support statehood. I find that more and more people do understand and they do support statehood. It's just an unwillingness to Congress, because we all know if DC gets statehood, have more Democrats.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're gonna move on with that question. Some people, including Republicans, have suggested the best way for us to receive full citizenship is through the state of Maryland. What is your stance on retroceding the district back to Maryland as an alternative to statehood? Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I strongly oppose retrocession. And in fact, I have testified before the Maryland General Assembly to that effect. A few weeks ago, there was a hearing on a resolution that a representative Maryland had introduced, saying that Maryland does not support retrocession and that there's no legal basis to deny DC statehood because of any claims Maryland might have on that land. And I testified in support of that resolution. I'm hopeful we can pass that resolution. The people of DC have been separate from Maryland for over, I believe now, over 200 years. Sorry, don't quote me on that, but it's been a long time. And longer than, West Virginia has been separate from Virginia, longer than a lot of states have existed. We have our own culture here in DC. They have their own culture in Maryland. We don't want to be a part of them. They don't want us to be, they don't want us. There's no reason to force this unwilling marriage upon both parties. The only solution to our disenfranchisement in DC is statehood, and I will be 100% committed to statehood, and I will oppose retrocession.
Okay. Mr. Oye.
Yes, thank you for that question. I wholeheartedly agree. I've knocked on doors in Southeast DC. I've knocked on doors in PG County. PG County doesn't want to be in DC, and DC doesn't want to be part of Maryland. Not only would it not work economically, not only would it not work culturally, it won't even work politically. The governor, the former Republican governor of Maryland, did not want DC voters to vote in his election. We are the smartest people in this country. We can vote our own mayor, we can vote our own council, make our own decisions for ourselves. We do not need Congress to oppress us and interfere with our legal, our legislative process. We don't even have them do that in their own separate jurisdictions. We're safer than some of the Republican districts in Congress, whether it's Bakersfield, where our former Speaker of the House resides in. And we have the tools, we have the people, we have the intelligence to make the best decision for ourselves. We need statehood to be able to have full autonomy, to have full control of our resources, and have a say on national matters.
Thank you, Mr. Oye. Mr. Kinlow.
All right, so this conversation really is kind of a false flag. And folk want you to think about this as a real option, but it's not. One thing that you hear people talk about is, well, maybe a constitutional amendment, 1. That's not going to happen. And 2, they want to talk about retrocession, and that's not going to happen. For retrocession to happen, really 2 elements need to occur. 1, residents of the District of Columbia would have to say that they want to be a part of Maryland. In 2016, as a part of the election and as a part of the convention, residents of Washington, D.C. said they wanted statehood, which is not being a part of Maryland. And the citizens of Maryland, the number two, citizens of Maryland would have to say that they want us to come back. And that's not going to happen. We've worked very hard with Maryland. We've got folk on like Steny-Hoyer. We were down there. We're moving legislation and testimony in Maryland, and that's not ever going to happen. So when you hear these issues, people out in the world, retrocession and a constitutional amendment ain't going to happen, and talk about DC statehood. That's what we need to talk about.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gray.
Okay. Retrocession is a moot point. We don't want Maryland. Maryland doesn't want us. As a matter of fact, Maryland supports statehood for the District of Columbia. It's a moot point.
Okay. Follow-up question. Hypothetically speaking, this is just general for anyone. Hypothetically speaking, pursuing retrocession to Maryland emerged as the only feasible path towards achieving full citizenship rights for the district residents. Would you be open to reconsidering? And if so, what criteria or conditions would need to be met for you to support this course of action? I want to start with Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I just don't think that's the premise of the question. I just don't agree with, to be honest. I don't think there's ever a situation where the retrocession will be the only feasible option, because there's always the option, if we don't have it this Congress, to come back next Congress. And if we do retrocession, that is permanent. You know, we are permanently choosing something. It's not like a half step. I support some half steps. You know, we're talking about getting maybe a vote for a real vote for our representative. We're talking about getting some more control over our criminal justice system. I support that because that's a half step on the path to statehood. Retrocession is a totally different path, and I don't support that because it's just not it's not going to happen, and it's just not a real option.
Okay, thank you. We have one more rebuttal from Mr. Kinlow. Actually, I'm sorry. If Miss Gray have something to say.
I totally agree. It's a moot point.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Okay, and so here is our next question. We asked the at-large candidates this question earlier. So we're gonna ask you the same question. How do you feel about Initiative 83? Mr. Kinlow, you can answer that.
All right. So one, I think if you can get the votes, you can put it on the ballot. So I'm supportive of anything that people want to put before the people. But I don't think that 83 is right for us here in Washington, D.C. As a member of the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. national, I know that our Ward 8 organization, which I'm a part of, has voted against it. I know that the Democrats in Washington, D.C. have voted against it. And I am not supportive of people joining a Democratic primary and weighing in that are not Democrats.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about the CRB, Initiative 83. So I think that this is something that's not good for us here in Washington, D.C. I'm not persuaded that the experiments that have occurred in Alaska and New York are right for us here in Washington, D.C. And I don't want to be an experiment. So I oppose it.
Okay. Thank you. My apologies. I meant to say it was 30 seconds, but
okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. James.
I'm sorry, Calique. I thought that was a whole question. Because I gave Mr. Kinlow a minute, can we give everybody else a minute to be fair? Is that okay? Okay.
Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I am a strong supporter of Initiative 83 for a couple of reasons. One, you look at the ranked choice voting aspect. Ranked choice voting benefits communities of color. It benefits communities just like here in Ward 8, because it makes sure that the person who's actually supported by a majority of the population is elected. You look in Ward 7, you have 10 candidates running. Somebody's going to win with 20% of the vote, and we don't know who actually the majority of people supported. Ranked choice voting would avoid that. Studies have shown that communities of color, that voters of color are more likely to rank more candidates than white voters, and so ranked choice voting benefits communities of color. I trust the voters of Ward 8. I think they're smart enough to know how to rank candidates, and I know that they will use ranked choice voting effectively. On the open primaries aspect, you know, let's all be honest. Like, we don't take anything for granted, but the Democratic primary in DC is the main event. right? And what we're doing is we're disenfranchising tens of thousands of people. I think 1/5 of all voters in DC from the main election in DC. I was at a League of Women Voters new citizen naturalization ceremony. A lot of them don't understand how this works in DC with the Democratic Party being the main election. They didn't choose a party to register. I wanted to yell at them, you're disenfranchising yourself by not registering as a Democrat. Of course I couldn't, I was a nonpartisan employee. Those people deserve the right to vote in the only election that matters. And that's why I support Initiative 83.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gray.
I do not support Initiative 83. First of all, if you want to vote in the Democratic primary, it's simple, just become a Democrat. And in terms of ranked choice voting, our research, and I'm an officer of the DC Democratic Party, our research shows that it does disenfranchise voters of color, particularly in wards 5, 7, and 8. We voted against it. I do not go against the party. That's the party's stance, and I support it wholeheartedly, 100%.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Oye.
The idea of I-83 is to make sure that the candidate gets the majority of the votes. However, I do have concerns about the implementation of it. It's very hard to go from voting traditionally to ranked choice vote without any type of lead up to it. I believe that a ranked choice vote would probably be more, I think I will be more willing to support that on the ANC level, given that there's oftentimes 2, 3, 4 candidates, especially in those elections, and will give people, especially in Ward 8, when I was my first race, I was with 3. I was in a seat, a race of 3 people, the opportunity to learn the process. I think when we saw what happened in New York, we saw that someone wasn't even elected mayor for a few days. And I believe that with ranked choice voting, there's an opportunity to really educate all DC residents about what this process is. In terms of open primaries, I believe that the Board of Elections tried to make it very easy for you to register. And they tell you if you're one party or the other. Now with mail-in ballots, if you don't get a ballot, you can really see what your registration is. And I believe that before we were to implement something, we definitely need to have a high level of education for voters, civic engagement.
All right, I just want to rebut something I heard, Calique.
30, okay.
All right, and that is, if this is about enfranchising people who like to use the franchise of voting, well, there's some things that we can do. One, we spend a little bit more money on GOTV, and that means get out the vote, right? 2, if you really want to enfranchise to get more people to vote, why don't we make Election Day a holiday where people can come out and vote, and it is a day off. You don't have to compete with work, school, or anything else. Those actions right there will enfranchise a majority of folk because it makes voting easier. And your goal is to remove barriers. That will remove barriers.
Can I just add something as well, Calique?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Eugene just said. I mean, we can do all of that, and we can support in ending disenfranchisement for independent voters in our primaries. We talk about independent. When we talk about independent voting, I think it's important to point out DC is a huge outlier in the rest of the nation. Almost every other state in the country allows independents to vote in party primaries. We are one of maybe three jurisdictions that don't allow it. So the sky will not fall if this happens. It happens in every other state. They have strong Democratic parties. I am a proud member of the DC Democrats, and I believe that this will only strengthen the DC Democratic Party and not harm it. We should just, follow the lead of every other state in this country and allow independents to vote in party primaries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jain.
Are we only allowed one rebuttal? Is that the rule?
We have to.
This is a Democrat organization. We're talking about independence. I just have to say that I stand with Democrats on this.
Yes, sir. All right, so we're gonna have to move forward to our next question. You'll be given 30 seconds each for this question. And we're gonna start with Mr. Oye. How would you work to involve and engage DC residents, particularly youth here in Ward 8, such as myself, in the statehood movement? 30 seconds.
Absolutely. We have to invest resources. I'm proud to have been involved in the DC Statehood Essay program that Phil Pinnell and ACC has championed for the past few years. Getting young people those early experiences of being civically engaged really helps them in the long term, whether they want to run for office, whether they want to go on campuses spreading the fight for DC statehood outside the district, and really helping us get closer to statehood. In addition, we launched a monumental vote center at Howard University. making sure that young people can actually vote on campus. Never been done before in DC on college campuses. We're trying to spread that all throughout the city. We want to make sure that folks understand that they can vote and start those actions early.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oye. Ms. Gray.
Well, thank you for the question, and I'm happy to announce that as the DC Democratic Party has the same feeling about engaging young folks, we are already in process of going into high schools to educate them about the educational process and helping them to get registered to vote. We also have college Democrats as members of the party who also help us to get out the vote. But it is important. And these young people who are coming on board are learning more and more about statehood themselves. And they are our young voices in this whole process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. Mr. Kinlow.
All right, so young people are and have been a part of every movement. We see the activism now in our newspapers and on TV every day. You see how many young people are active on issues that move them. We saw it 30 years ago in South Africa, and we need to get more engaged now. I've been a part of a team that helped support grants for young folk, including the Anacostia Coordinating Council. I've been out there supporting organizations like Students for DC Statehood to build momentum and build awareness out in the States. And I think that we still have a lot of work to do to get all of our students who are here in Washington, DC, so when they go out into the country, they can share their message.
Yes,
but we
sir.
can do more.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts on this. One is that I see a lot of the same people at statehood rallies and events I go to, which I do go to all the time. A lot of times you see the same people. And so we need to expand the group of people who are going to these events. And one of the ways to do that is through things like educational campaigns of our young people, especially in Ward 8, going to schools, talking to the seniors in the classes. And I really want to commend Rep. Oye because he's been doing a lot of this work. And I want to work with him to continue doing that. And the second thing I'll say is that a lot of people don't get involved because they don't understand why statehood matters. What does it mean to me for DC to be a state or not be a state? And so we need to explain to them why it matters that crime is higher in DC because we're not a state, because we have a messed up criminal justice system, and connect it directly to their experiences.
Yes, thank you. And here is a quick follow-up question. Recognizing the role of our young people in DC, how do you envision that by empowering young people here, not only as participants, but as leaders within their statehood movement? And what concrete steps will you take to ensure that their voices are not only heard, but they are a part of the movement that you are trying to set apart? I want to ask that to Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we need to do is we have something called the statehood table where we have people meet who are part of different statehood organizations to talk about how to move the cause forward. And we need to make sure we have more people in that attending those meetings who are part of the organizational, grassroots leader efforts to advance statehood. And if we can get more young people in Ward 8 directly involved with statehood and being part of those conversations, not just showing up at events, but really guiding and leading the path forward for us. That's what I would like to do and make sure we have that organizational apparatus in place.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to have the closing statements from each of you. You all have 1 minute to do so. And yeah, so we can start with Mr. Oye.
First of all, Calique, I want to say thank you for not only leading this panel, moderating here, but also moderating the earlier debate. I want to thank you all here at Ward 8 Dems. I see my friends LaJoy, Troy, Phil, and members on this panel who are really taking it to the next step. Being in Southeast Washington, D.C. is not just about how you spend your time or how much time you have. It's really about how you impact other people, how you platform other people, how you take this seat from the shadows to the next step. And I'm very proud to do so. Whether it's our DC statehood rallies, whether it's going to Congress, whether it's bringing Congress to some of our events, it's really been something that has been tantamount to what we've done in this role. I ask for your vote. I ask you to share what we've been doing in this office with your friends, because the more people that know about this role, the more successful we'll be, the more we'll be able to make DC statehood a reality. And I thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I thank you so much for allowing the spotlight to be here. And more importantly, for using Ward 8 values to take this level to the next. It's not about what the mayor can do, what the council member can do. It's how each and every one of us can make the city safer and more fair.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
All right, thank you. I am asking for your vote because I'm already on the job and can document my work. Please go to lindagraydc.com. We need to have a representative that has the available time to go on the Hill as defined in our New Columbia Commission, who has talked to Congress folks, who have talked to the President of the United States, who involves Democratic parties across the country to support DC statehood. And finally, I want to remind everybody that what happens with us, particularly with women, the assault that women suffer through all across this country, we need more women in office all across this country. There has not been a woman in this position since 1993. And so we need someone who is available, who will work to try to flip Congress, to try to stabilize and maintain Democratic control in the Senate, and get one more shot at statehood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jain?
I also want to just thank you, Calique, for being an excellent moderator, and Ms. Johnson and Mr. Presswood for being great timekeepers and putting this on. So my name is Ankit Jain. I'm asking for your vote on June 4th for Shadow Senator. I am a voting rights attorney. I'm doing this work because I truly believe in democracy. This position, I'm running for this position as an outgrowth of everything I've been doing in my entire career to advance democratic rights forward. And you know, I don't take democracy for granted. I grew up as the son of immigrants whose dad had to sleep outside overnight outside his local immigration office to get a green card and get on the pathway to a vote. And my dad worked too hard to gain that right to vote, to see his son lose that right just because he decided to cross the river into the city. So I will be dedicated to this cause. I'm 100% committed. I'll show up every day and work hard. And I'm somebody who has the vision and experience to get what we deserve out of Congress, but also brings that new perspective, not stuck in some of the status quo thinking. I'll make sure that we advance statehood forward. And I hope you'll vote for me on June 4th for Shadow Senator. My name is Ankit Jain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Kinlow?
All right, so first of all, I want to thank all my Ward 8 neighbors and my Ward 8 team and all the statehood activists for being here to see us have this conversation. I've got two personal asks. One is personal, but the larger one is that I need everyone who's involved and can hear my voice to be involved in the statehood movement, because statehood is not about me. It's about all of us. So I need each and every person, if you're part of an organization, urge that organization to do more. Be involved in an organization. If you're not, join one. All right, so be a part of the movement. And then second, I need you to vote for me because I have the experience. I've got the relationships. I have done the work. I'm not new to the game. I'm true to the game. I've been doing this work for 20 years and at a very high level. When people didn't even think about statehood, now it's sexy. Everybody wants to talk about statehood, but we've got a lot of work to do. And I am your guy, Eugene Kinlow. Vote me on June 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinlow. Thank each and every one of you for coming on here, taking the time out of your day to speak with us and give information to the Ward 8 Democrats about who you are, your vision for Ward 8, and how you can help us and assist us with moving forward and making DC a state. So once again, we appreciate you and we applaud you on today. We thank you for being here. And so at this time, I just want to say thank you to everyone who were on here. And we do appreciate each and every one of you for logging on. We hope that you gained something from it, got insight, and we hope that you listened to hear something that was impacting. And it made your decision of voting a little bit more easier. When I turn 18, we're definitely doing it. So yeah, thank you guys for having me. We're going to turn it back over to Troy, and I want to tell him thank you for having me. And next time you see me, I might be the president of, Ward 8 Democrats. So have a good day. Thank you.
Man, from your lips to God's ears, I hope you want to become president of the Ward 8 Democrats, because you knocked it out of the park. You knocked it out of the park today for us, Calique. And I just want everybody to just give him a round of applause. Clap it up for him. Clap it up for him. And, he's so humble, but I am not. And so I want to share with everybody his Cash App. If you really, really want to thank him, and I had to pry this out of him, by the way. But if you really want to thank him, because he just wanted to go along for the ride, and sure, the ride is important, but you need gas for the ride. So here is his Cash App, everybody. Please, if you are live with us right now, or if you watch this on demand, you have an opportunity to sow a seed into this young man, to thank him for moderating this panel today, panels really, but then also to support our young people. We talked a lot today about youth violence and how can we do more to prevent youth violence and to get them on the right track. Well, we have young people, most of our young people, and hear me when I say this, most of our young people are doing the right thing. And so we have to support them when they are. And so here is one way that we can do that with Calique today. So thank you, Calique. I appreciate it. And please thank your family as well for lending you out to us this afternoon. All right, so once again, that's Calique Barnes. That's his Cash App. Screenshot that, Cash App him. Donate to us at Ward 8 Dems, and we'll, if you can't do a Cash App, and we'll forward it on to him as well. All right, so I want to just wrap us up here in terms of where we go from here. So just keep in mind that the last thing that we need to do is we got to vote. So I shared with you all earlier those vote centers. I just want to quickly put them up one more time so that you see them, and screenshot them if you need to, so that you can be prepared. It's all about preparing yourself for this election season. So here are the drop boxes one more time. They open up on May 10th and they go through June 4th. They're going to be 24 hours a day. If you are not near a mailbox, you can take your ballot to one of these drop box locations. If you want to go in person, I'm someone, I have to tell you, I still like to go in person. But sometimes I'm traveling on election day. But if you, but let's say that may be the case for you, then go early. Don't wait until the last minute. Go early so you can go to these locations here. They open up on Sunday, May 26th, and they go for a full week until Sunday, until Sunday, June 2nd, and they open at 8:30 and they go to 7 o'clock. The only day they're going to be closed in that week is on that Monday, which is Memorial Day. So make a plan. If you know that you really want to go in person, but you may not be available on the 4th, which is the final day to vote, go early. Go early. So here are the early voting locations just in Ward 8. There are many more across the city, but these are the ones in Ward 8. And then here are the vote centers that are going to be open on the final day to vote, which is Election Day, Tuesday, June 4th. They're going to be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. These locations are near you. They're in the community. They pretty much are like the precincts that we are used to in the past, but they are different than precincts. They are vote centers, which mean anybody can go there and cast your ballot. So if you didn't get a chance to do a drop box or a mail-in, if you didn't get a chance to do early voting, here's your last chance on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. All right. So I want to just, as we wrap up here, I do want to once again just thank everyone who has been a part of this. I want to thank LaJoy Johnson Law, who was our timekeeper. Thank you so much, LaJoy. LaJoy reached out a month ago and said, hey, I want to be engaged with whatever you need. LaJoy used to be a member of the Ward 8 Democrats on our executive team, and so we appreciate her volunteering. I want to also thank the candidates. I want to thank Robert White, who is running for at-large, and Rodney Red Grant, who is also running for at-large. I want to thank Ankit Jain, who is running for Shadow Senate, as well as Eugene D. Kinlow, who's running for Shadow Senate. And I want to also thank Oye Owolewa, who's running for Shadow U.S. Rep, and Linda L. Gray, who is also running for U.S. Rep. I want to thank all of you for being here in Ward 8 today virtually. I want to thank all of you for joining us online today. Be sure to stay up to everything that we're doing and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All of our videos, including this one, will be on those sites, as well as on our website at ward8dems.com. Join us to serve on one of our wonderful committees. I mentioned them earlier: youth, seniors, public relations, statehood. We talked at length today about statehood. There's a place for you there as well. So if you are a Ward 8 registered voter, we have a place for you to showcase your talents and your gifts. So send us an email at info@ward8dems.com. That's the number 8dems.com. Our next forum is going to be on May 18th. That's the Saturday, May 18th. Is going to be at Sycamore in Oakland. It's going to be for Ward 8 Council and Delegate to Congress. We will also have a straw poll at that event. So if you fill in a particular candidate today, then you can come out to that in-person event and you can actually cast a straw poll ballot for them so that they know what the support level is here in the ward. We hope that we see you then. So if there is nothing else, and we're over time, so I don't think there's anything else, again, I want to thank you all so much. Until next time, go in peace. God bless. We are adjourned.